on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz Phoenix, the YWC Reality Check, and this is WWE Last Week, your weekly look back at the week that was in the WWE. A few quick programming notes right off the bat. You will notice there was no NXT review this week again. I was really looking forward to starting to do NXT again because they were going to go black and gold and all that kind of thing. Thing is, there's a couple of really good things on NXT, and they spread them out real thin amongst all the other stuff that I just can't come up here and pretend to be excited about, which creates the dichotomy of it's a really sort of boring, kind of half-ass, kind of half-and-half show that's leading up to a pay-per-view in, what's it called? Deadline, that I really am looking forward to. I'm really looking forward to the Iron Survivor concept and how that plays out. I won't say I'm super hyped for Apollo Crews versus Braun Breaker, but I do think it will be a really good match that will surprise and impress a lot of people, as it should. And yeah, I was going to talk about the Iron Survivor Challenge this week because we were supposed to get the participants announced, but they sort of pulled a little bit of a bait and switch and announced 4 out of the 5 participants on each one. So I'm going to save that conversation for this week. There will be a preview of Deadline because, like I say, I am looking forward to it. And in that preview, I will also kind of make fun of Final Battle, probably because ROH, as an extension of AEW, can go fuck itself. Oh, yes. So this is where we're gonna kind of break the pattern a little bit. You guys know when there's a pay-per-view to preview, I typically don't do a WWE Last Week that week because everything I would say in the preview, but with it being an NXT pay-per-view, that really doesn't apply. So there will still be a WWE Last Week episode going up next Monday. As you're listening to this right now, this morning, it is Monday. The way my recording schedule goes this week, this might be done in 2 halves. I might have to talk about Raw now, talk about SmackDown later on. We'll see how everything goes. So yeah, with my absolutely zero editing skills, you will get a weird jump cut at some point in this. A lot of rebuilding. And okay, coming off of War Games, it was fine, right? So it made for not exceptionally like blockbuster A1, go back to the year 2022, and this episode is one you're going to watch, but there's some stuff to talk about. We should talk about the fact that Becky Lynch came back on SmackDown last Friday, just before War Games, as one of the big news points, but more to the point, War Games was a lot of fun. It kind of went the way I thought it was going to go. The ladies opened, the men closed. Rhea Ripley wrecked shop. Becky Lynch getting the win in her comeback match, essentially, to be coming back from injury and going to something like War Games. I mean, it is what it is. We got what we wanted from a lot of things. Rhea Ripley and Mia Yim played out their feud. We got to see more of Asuka and Io Sky. Becky Lynch just being a rock star coming off the top of the cage there. And yeah, like I said, Rhea Ripley, even in a losing effort as being part of the losing team, she definitely wasn't pinned, and she definitely monstered a lot of people in that match. And on the other side of the scale, you had the men's match, which was entirely the story of Sami Zayn and the Bloodline, and what, at this point, this is the downfall of me doing the Last Week concept. What can I say about the men's War Games match and the story that got told in the men's War Games match that hasn't already been said? Now, I will say, there's a bit of a narrative flaw in the story that's being told, but the story itself is so good, I'm willing to ignore it. But the fatal flaw is the same as every time they try to run a story of, oh, you betrayed me when you eliminated me out of the Royal Rumble. Well, no, you were one of my opponents. When they say in the War Games match, Sami Zayn turned on Kevin Owens, he betrayed his friend and whatever, and it's like, but he didn't though, because they're on opposite teams. And everybody wants to win. That's never... Okay, it's not exclusive to this, which is why I'm not holding it against this story. It's a narrative that exists within wrestling. If you are across the ring from your brother, teammate, family member, friend, whatever, and they are your opponent that night, and you do something in the efforts to beat them, you haven't turned on them, You've been an athlete. I mean, everybody except me right now, it seems, is talking about the soccer. I'm sure some of the American team members have friends on the Brazil team, have friends on the UK team, etc. It doesn't mean they're not going to play to win, because, you know, winning kind of kicks ass. But him turning on Sammy, stopping the pin, then hitting the low blow and the haluva kick and letting Jay get the pin, finally getting the approval from Jay and the big hug, and everything's all hunky-dory now, off of what happened last week on SmackDown with the face-to-face with Kevin Owens that was overheard by Jey Uso. Like, all that story coming together is just, it's money. It really is. Like, unfortunately, the Brawling Brutes, Drew McIntyre and Sheamus, the Brawling Brutes, Drew McIntyre and Kevin Owens were just 5 other guys in the ring, so that the Bloodline could tell their story. But that would have happened with anybody going up against the Bloodline, because the Bloodline is the biggest story in wrestling right now. Sorry, Kenny and Adam. Oh no. Oh, my buddy beat me, so I'm going to go out on the piss for a couple of months, knock up my wife, come back and get a title shot, is not a story. It's sad, actually, but look at what's going on in AEW right now. Moving on. So let's talk about Raw now. AEW really is shit, isn't it? We start off Raw with the War Games recap and the Bloodline arriving at Raw. It really does, like, they actually have done something here, where usually 9 times out of 10 people would just take the piss out of it. It's like, oh, well, so much for that brand split, eh? Whereas the Bloodline shows up on Raw, and it feels like Raw gets a little extra that week, and I think that's really cool. They're all buddy-buddy, they're all arm-in-arm. Solo Sikoa is sort of the unsung hero in these bits as well. We'll get to that later on. But then we start the show proper in the ring with Becky Lynch, who gets huge welcome back chants, obviously gives a very typical but very appreciated comeback speech, immediately goes out into the people. She's like, I want to be a man of the people, so I'm going to be out there in the people, and she defends one of the guys in the yellow X-Men sweater named Bob, and there's another guy named Zachary, and she's talking directly to them, and she says, I've been gone for a long time, there's a lot of changes, there's a lot of new faces in that locker room, and I want to slap the taste out of all of them, which is fine because it's Becky Lynch and she's going back to being the man, and everybody liked that. Big Time Bex was not popular with a lot of people, actually. She's interrupted by Bayley, who is not in the presence of the rest of Damage Control. She looks all serious and she's dressed all in black and whatever. She mocks Becky Lynch for sitting outside with the humble peasants and puts the whole, like, mocks the whole, you know, I put my body on the line cliche, which, look, I know that's supposed to make her sound like an asshole, but any wrestler who comes out and says, every week I put my body on the line, I want to scream into my television, yeah, and so does everybody else you're performing with. Any wrestler, like you've heard in an interview, will tell you, like, it's just as easy to get injured doing a triple Young Bucks ballerina bullshit move off the top of a cage onto thumbtacks as it is to get injured if somebody hits a clothesline a bit wrong. And sometimes more so, because in the more dangerous spots you're being more careful because it's a more dangerous spot. So I know her taking the piss out of that is supposed to make her sound like a bad guy, but again, it's actually kind of true. Mocks Becky some more and talks about how Becky Lynch came back for one match and she's been through all these other matches that have been hard. The last person standing match, getting trapped in the ladder by Bianca Belair, the fact that they actually had a ladder match as well. And then Dakota Kai and Io Sky come down the ramp that Bayley's in from the crowd and they brawl into the back, and it's fine. And to the Michael Sidgwicks of the world that want to say, oh, but that was a fake merch stand, and it's like, yep, just like it would be for every other wrestling company, because if they were brawling in the actual merch stand and even presenting the opportunity for a bystander to get hurt, that would be the dumbest move in the world, but it's still kind of fun. They do get into some pretty, like, chintzy looking, like, WWE merch. Like, one of them tries to do like a brass knuckle shot with the fake John Cena chain, which made me laugh. The other thing that's getting mocked, though, is they get brained with a Money in the Bank briefcase from the merch stand, and the immediate reaction by naysayers was like, oh, it wasn't a real Money in the Bank, it was just a lunchbox. And I'm like, yeah, that still wouldn't be great. I'm just saying. And they brawl away from the merch stand and they eventually get broken up, and it is what it is. Just take it to a slightly different, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Take it to a slightly different place. Start it in a completely different place by cutting the promo from the ramp, or from the crowd side of things, which was nice, involving Bob and Zachary, and sure, maybe they were plants. Who the fuck cares? Every single person wearing a Daniel Bryan shirt when the Yes movement happened on Raw was a plant. Get over yourself. But, you know, starting off in a place that the opening promo doesn't usually start off with, and going with a brawl that was a little bit different than some brawls is enough for me. And plus, it's the first time properly that Becky Lynch has got a chance to grab the mic, interact with the crowd, and, you know, celebrate actually being back. I do like the fact that even though this was a match that entirely existed on Raw, it was all Raw competitors up until the last reveal was made on SmackDown when Becky Lynch made her comeback. It has left them wide open to clarify later on what brand she's actually on, and I think she's going to appear on both, and that's absolutely fine. Long term, I think they're going towards Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey, which would put her on SmackDown eventually, but that would mean her winning the Rumble, and there's no loophole there because the winner of the Royal Rumble gets to choose what champion they face anyway. So it's all good. It all works. Happy to have Becky Lynch back. There's 3 returns this week we got to talk about as we go. The first match of the night is Rhea Ripley versus Mia Yim. Rhea Ripley coming out with Dominic, obviously. Mia Yim still has the OC vest on, the little like cut-off version of the OC like biker type vest, and I really don't want to make a aces and eights joke, but one will probably come to me eventually. I do like the fact that they're actually keeping her as part of the OC. She's not just the one that came to help out the OC to even off the numbers. Like, do you remember the original group where it was just like Finn agreed to help AJ and AJ agreed to help Finn, and then they sort of looped in Liv Morgan for that one match, and then everybody sort of broke off and did their own thing again, most importantly Finn joining the Judgment Day. But I like that they're actually keeping her in the group. That's kind of cool. Big, huge powerhouse showcased by Ripley. Mia Yim being the smarter, more conniving one of the two, which is what you have to do when you're not the power player. She picks her spots. She gets a couple good spots in. But overall, it's a long, drawn-out beatdown by Rhea Ripley, who's a fucking star. Mia Yim goes outside and fucks with Dominic for a minute, and that sets Rhea Ripley off because she's mommy. Don't do it. Don't go there. I take it back right away. The beatdown continues. Styles hits the ring to take out Dominic eventually to get him to stop interfering. Everybody jumps in. Everybody jumps in. You get the Good Brothers, you get AJ Styles, you get Damian Priest, you get Finn Balor, you get Rhea Ripley, you get Mia Yim. AJ Styles gets on the microphone and challenges for the 8-man right then and there. Now, love this. Love this for a bunch of reasons, and I'm going to lay them out thusly. When Mia Yim joined the OC to solve the Rhea Ripley problem, everybody assumed that it was going to be a 4-on-4 at Survivor Series. We got the AJ versus Finn match instead. We got Rhea Ripley and Mia Yim both representing their respective factions in something cool like War Games instead of having them have the 4-way or their 4-on-4 or the 1-on-1 between Rhea Ripley and Mia Yim. So we got Rhea Ripley versus Mia Yim tonight, and now we get the 4-way or the 4-on-4, that we wanted to begin with to end off the whole fucking thing. The brawl breaks out into 2 singles and a tag. Obviously the leaders face each other, the ladies face each other, and the remainders are the remainders. I'm not saying Damian Priest and Dominic Mysterio are a tag team that's going to go up against the Good Brothers, but it is what it is. It's a big, fun pile of people match. Rhea fights Anderson a little bit, which gets a pop from everybody. I think at one point Mia Yim body slammed Finn Balor, which was kind of fun. Gallows hits this weirdly devastating, like, upward spear on Damian Priest, like, not through the commentator's table, but, like, up onto it. Yim gets the hot tag towards the end of the match. She goes absolutely crazy. She hits a luva kick and a cannonball, but Rhea Ripley's the one, and everybody sees it right now, and everybody's saying it right now, and I think it's fucking awesome. No offense to Mia Yim. Rhea Ripley's the one getting the push right now. Rhea Ripley absolutely destroys her with a riptide, and let's just be real for a second. She's either trying to cut people in half or fold them in half every time she pins somebody. Now, there's one review that I did do for NXT, and it was when all the main roster WWE people showed up, and it was Rhea Ripley versus Roxanne Perez in the pick your poison between her and Cora Jade, and the way she pins her, it is exactly why I chose it as the thumbnail. I'm not gonna lie or pretend that I'm a good person, but the way she just does that, it's like this whole like, yeah, not only did I beat you, I own you. So like you will be serving in the role of surrogate Dominic Mysterio until me and Dom get to the back. It's absolutely fine. The Bloodline come out for a celebration. They're putting over Sammy for helping them win. They're celebrating the fact that Jay and Sammy are all good again. They go in for a hug. Jimmy is doing this thing from his point of view where he's like, I like everybody in this group already. I'm really glad that we're all getting along right now. Jay is sort of like last one to the party as far as accepting Sami Zayn, and they're all having this big exuberant hug, da-da-da-da, and sorry, the three of them turn to Solo, and he's just standing there, arms crossed, like Solo Sikoa does. And because I love to pull ridiculous references out of my ass, it made me think of, somebody will be able to tell me down in the comment section below, I know you guys are better with dates than I am, but there's a Royal Rumble back in the day where they still got the numbers out of the tumbler, and it was Christian coming face to face with John Cena. Christian was partnered with Tyson Tomko at the time, where Tyson Tomko was like his bodyguard or his heavy or whatever, and Christian goes to mock John Cena and the rap shtick, right? He's like, I can out rap you, Tomko, give me a beat. Tomko, straight face as ever, no. And that's kind of what it was like, watching all these guys being goofy in the ring and basically loving each other like a family should. And Solo's just like to the side. And I will say, I think both in this and on SmackDown, he's the only one not coming out actually in Bloodline merch. He's sort of just dressed in black off to the one side. It could be something, it could be nothing, but it was on both shows, so it's worth noting for sure. Owens comes out before Solo can actually answer whether he's going to join the hug or not, and he's not angry, he's not challenging anybody, he's not pissed off, he's not coming out there to like insult anybody. He just comes out and he says, look bud, I get it. You know, I understand. We always end up turning on each other. We've known each other for however long we've known each other. I've turned on you, you've turned on me, whatever. I don't even want to fight you anymore. I just want nothing to do with you. I am happy that everybody sees how good you are, which is what I've been saying the whole time. But I'm done. I don't want anything else to do with you, which was actually genuinely played off pretty well. For wrestling related drama, it actually played off pretty well. And he says, just one thing before I go, as much as the Bloodline seems to accept you right now, you will never actually be their blood. And then Jay steps in immediately in defense of Sami Zayn and, you know, challenges him and says, like, yo, you got a problem with, the honorary use, you got a problem with me. And Kevin Owens is like, yeah, I'm done with Sammy. I'll take you on. That's no problem. And then they set up their main event for later on tonight. Now, this is cool for two reasons. Like I said, they're playing a really tricky game here. They're trying to play an emotional type role with Kevin Owens right now, where he's just so like defeated and he's lost his friend and he's had to give up getting his friend back, which is a cool story to tell, and bravo as far as a wrestling storyline. I mean, it's way better than just like losing to your friend and going and getting drunk for a while and knocking up your wife. That's for damn sure. But the reaction from Jey Uso, it can be read one of two ways. Either he's still planning on like fucking up Sami Zayn at some point, and he's going so far the other way to prove that he's finally embraced Sami Zayn, that he's willing to defend him, that he's willing to stand in front of him and be the human shield and all that kind of thing. Or they're going the genuine route, and he's felt so bad for not trusting Sami Zayn and giving him a hard time and not letting him just be part of the family, that he's compensating for that bad feeling by overstepping and defending Sami Zayn. And the fact that you can go both of those ways, and both of those ways, like I say, that are way deeper than a typical wrestling story, especially in WWE, let's be real, is really, really cool. But yeah, we've got our main event set for later on that night. We replay the Damage Control taking out Candice LeRAE a little while ago. Candice LeRae is back tonight. She's being interviewed backstage. It starts out like sort of a timid, like, hey, I'm just happy to be back promo, and then she grabs the microphone and sort of takes it over. It's like, no, I'm back. I'm going to kick some ass. Dakota Kai is going to hear about it tonight type of thing. The whole time, Nikki Cross is like sort of creeping around in the background being crazy Nikki Cross. Love it. In the back, for reasons, you've got Riddle talking about how much he loves being a teammate with Elias and how Elias is like, I'm really more of a solo guy. Riddle's not getting the hint, obviously. He's like, nah, man, we could make a great team. We can make a great band, and we could be the tag team champions. And then Usos walk by, laugh at them, and they challenge them for next week, which means tonight we're seeing Riddle and Elias versus the Usos to see who's gonna. They're not gonna win, are they? Like, that's all that is. I don't care. And speaking of, I don't care. There has to be something, and it's nothing against any of these four guys either. Alpha Academy and the Street Profits have a good match. It goes a bit long, and the Street Profits win. People have mentioned it on podcasts before. It really is a bad sign of how things are going that I didn't notice that the Street Profits were gone. And like I say, the Alpha Academy's kind of there. Street Profits are kind of there. We're in a world right now where we just proved in the previous segment where they were stepping up to Riddle and Elias that nobody feels like they're going to beat the Usos, which takes the titles off the table. And when the titles are off the table, it kind of makes the division feel a little shit. So, yeah, Alpha Academy and the Street Profits, this was some very, very acceptable wrestling happening in front of my face that went a bit long. Austin Theory comes out, who he won the United States Championship at War Games. I'm just going to say War Games. Like, it's Survivor Series War Games, but it's War Games. He celebrates, he brags about the U.S. title win, he brags about being a two-time champion. He calls out the fans that mocked him for the bad Money in the Bank cash-in, which I thought was a really nice touch. Everybody now wants to be Austin Theory. I'm not the next anything, I'm the now, which is fine. He's got the now on one of his knee pads, I think, which is fine. He's interrupted by Rollins, who comes out and says, shut up and let them sing my song. Long story short, you got really lucky on Saturday, but don't get ahead of yourself. Mondays still belong to me, kid. They've got this big thing now where Austin Theory is done being called the next whatever. He's done being called a kid. Every line Rollins spit at him ended in kid. And he says, you know what? Mondays belong to me. You want to defend that title against me. You want to be something. Like, let's do something about it. And he says, we'll fight on the champs time. And Rollins does all this in a see-through lace pants and shirt. So that's awesome, I suppose. Don't get me wrong. Don't get my lack of enthusiasm. Like, Rollins, he's got this heel character that got over with the fans, which makes him face to the fans. So now they're trying to make him face a little bit while keeping the elements of the heel thing that made him a heel while trying to portray a face that realizes people think he's a face. And I just messed that up entirely, but I hope you get what I mean. The match is going to be fantastic. Austin Theory and Seth Rollins one-on-one. I don't think they're going to save that for the Royal Rumble, seeing as the Royal Rumble's like 8 weeks away. That'll be a main event on Raw. That will be a main event on Raw for sure. It's kind of like people are saying with the opening segment, Becky Lynch and Bayley sort of trading words and whatever. Neither one of them has a title. It's just a match between two people that have a lot of history. I don't think they'll drag that out all the way to the Royal Rumble. I think they will make that a main event of Raw. You can start making some destination episodes of Raw between now and the Rumble because there's nothing else between now and the Rumble. And I think that's kind of awesome. Like I say, I love the goofy sort of throwaway nature of day one as a pay-per-view. But if they're just going to do a gap and run straight through to the Royal Rumble, let's just see how that goes. And then there's Elimination Chamber where they're in the right country but the wrong province. We don't need to talk about it. It's fine. You know what I really don't want to talk about? Is the whole Miz Dexter thing. There's a big video package, you know, what's his name? Oh, what's his name? Byron Saxton. There we go. So forgettable that I forgot his name. Him doing his whole like mock 60 minutes thing, Dexter and whatever. Miz tries to get out of it by saying his hand is injured again, and Adam Pearce says, no, you're not getting out of this, and by the way, you bandaged up the wrong hand. And Miz and Dexter, anything goes. It's a weird, slow squash. Dexter Lumis crawls around the ring like a crab, which is fine. We come back from the commercial break, and you can hear it in my voice. And The Miz has a vice on his head, and I'm like, because this is where my brain goes, because I've seen the guy on Impact and I've seen the guy at Destiny Live, checking off your Spaz Phoenix bucket list, in the most unenthusiastic way I've ever brought up the Spaz Phoenix bucket list. But, like, we come back from break and he's got the vice on his head, and I'm thinking, okay, are they trying to make him PCO? Like, is that what's happening? Eventually, Miz gets locked in the... Fuck, I'm losing myself because I don't want to talk about this match, because everybody in this match needs to be doing something better. Even Dexter Lumis, who I'm 50-50. I mean, Gargano's awesome. Miz is awesome for what he is, even though people don't want to give him the credit. Dexter Lumis, I'm 50-50 on, but he could be doing something better than this, for damn sure. Chokes him out with the silence. Miz gives him the money that he owes him. He starts handing the money out to kids because he's a serial killer, but he's a babyface, which is fine. Miz goes around trying to get the money back, and then Gargano comes out, super kicks him in the face, and gives the money back to the kids again. Seeing little kids' eyes light up over $100 bills while the babyface serial killer is giving them money. I don't know. Candice LeRae versus Dakota Kai. Candice LeRae versus Dakota Kai was a great comeback match for Candice. Really good to see her back. She's in better shape than Kai after War Games. Is a story that they could have played up a little bit better. Like, she's coming back from injury. She might have some ring rust on her. But Dakota Kai was in a 10-person cage match 2 days ago. Don't think they played that up so well. But I really did like this because, A, comeback match for Candice. Candice was involved with Damage Control when she first returned to the company. So you gotta think at some point she may have factored into the War Games match itself. But who knows. So nice to see her back in general. Nice to see Dakota Kai in a singles match, because I like Damage Control, and I like the team of her and Io Sky being the tag team champions, etc. But what it has meant is that she hasn't really gotten any chance to shine solo. Like, in big group matches, Io Sky has still had chances to shine as a singles person, particularly with her interactions with Asuka. Dakota Kai has kind of sort of been the third person, which kind of sucks. And that's, I think, after what happened on SmackDown, that's going to change a lot. But, really cool match for both. Like I say, Candice is just coming back. Dakota Kai getting to shine on her own for once. There was a dirty apron DDT by Candice. Crazy kicks by Dakota Kai. Pump handle German suplex with a bridge by Candice was nice. Neckbreaker off the ropes gets the win for Candice. And you know what? Thing is, her neckbreaker off the ropes is, for a lot of other wrestlers and a lot of other types of wrestling matches and a lot of other companies even, that move would be like a transitional move. It would be like a setup, like you would do the neck breaker and then, like, it would be Hardy Boys, for example. They did the Twist of Fate, put the person down, and then set them up for the Swanton Bomb. It would be a 1-2 punch. But her doing the second rope swinging neck breaker as a finisher just works. I can't explain why it works. Maybe I'm a little bit biased. It's fine. In the back, we've got the remaining winning members of the Women's War Games team. It's Bianca Belair, it's Asuka, and it's Alexa Bliss. They're being interviewed. Basically, are you happy you won? Which, of course, they're happy that they won. And Alexa Bliss is off in the distance, and she's going a little bit loopy, a little bit weird, and hints towards her being back involved with Bray Wyatt again. Now, this is a really, really, really interesting intersection of two different bullshit fan bases. You've got the people that are of the opinion that, spooky stuff, supernatural stuff, and whatever doesn't work in wrestling, even though the greatest creation WWE ever came up with was a supernatural character, but it is what it is. And you've got the other people, on the other hand, that are just upset if Alexa Bliss wins anything ever, because how dare she be white, blonde, and successful. You put these two people together, and they get talking enough, and they need to come up with something brand new. We can't just say we don't like spooky stuff, because that's a bullshit take. You can't just say we don't want her to succeed because she's white and blonde, and therefore we're going to call her a Barbie doll, whatever. You have to come up with something new. It must mean if she's going to be hooked back up with Bray Wyatt, then Bray Wyatt's somehow a pedophile. That is a really shit take. And trust me, later on when we close out the pod, there's another shit take I want to talk about. But that is a very shit take. And that is an abhorrent misuse of a very real problem in society just because somebody you don't like or a genre that you don't like might succeed at something. You're a pretty shit human being if you're the one coming up with these takes. And no, I don't just mean Michael Sidgwick. Anyways, Main event is what it is. It's Jey Uso versus Kevin Owens. The Bloodline's out. They're doing their distraction stuff. It's a great match. I said it before. One of the things we lost, and I hate to say this because I'm obviously glad Jimmy Uso came back to the company, but it kind of changed Jay's role. Jay's role individually now is the guy that didn't want Sammy in the group, but other than that, he's the tag team guy. But we cut short the main event Jey Uso push, and we got a little bit of that, as he's literally in the main event tonight with a former world champion named Kevin Owens. I don't care whether it was the Universal Champion or whatever the hell it was a world title, suck my dick. So main event, Jey Uso, in the main event against a former world champion, got a little bit of that main event Jey Uso vibe back, which is really cool. Kevin Owens fights against the odds, he wins with a stunner, and that's how we end the show. Really, really good Monday Night Raw. Not too much, not anything that's going to set the world on fire. Setting a more, like I say, we've got 8 weeks or so to build until the Royal Rumble, so it's going to be a slower build, a slower pace, and I think this set that pace pretty damn well. Don't know when I'm going to record the second half of this, but right now, this is the first half of a very awkward jump cut. And we're back. Did you miss me? Did you enjoy the jump cut? Are you ready to talk about SmackDown? Let's go. SmackDown started where basically Raw left off. It was Sammy and the Bloodline. Sammy comes over and puts over the Usos, and the Usos cut him off. They won't let him do it. They give him all the credit for the War Games win. Jay asks him in the most, comically intense way possible, how are you feeling? And he says he's feeling pretty goddamn oozy, and they all hug again. Solo Sikoa's to the side again, not dressed in the Bloodline colors again. I think it's funny that the Bloodline 99% lives on SmackDown, and most of their gear is either red or black and red. The Uzi chants are great. The fan goes crazy for all of these guys. Brawling Brutes come out. They hit the ring. There's not much of a back and forth promo. Sheamus comes out, says it's fight night, and our opening match is Sheamus versus Sammy. Sammy ragdolls in the early going of this match, making Sheamus look like $1,000,000. Excuse me. Sammy Uso chants ringing out as everybody at ringside sort of pushes and shoves each other. The distraction sends the whole match in Sammy's direction for a little bit. Sammy manages to turn a second rope white noise attempt into a rolling Batista bomb. Uso's cheap shot. There's a blue thunder bomb and a near fall, and everybody brawls outside. Jay super kicks Sheamus into a roll-up, and Sammy gets the win. Very, very important once again that just like on Raw, when somebody needed to stick up for Sammy against Kevin Owens, it was Jay. When Sammy needed a little bit of help in this match, it was Jay that super kicked Sheamus into Sammy's roll-up, and it was the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, in the immortal words of Simon Miller. But it's very important, not just that all the Bloodline's helping out Sammy. Okay, cool, that makes sense, but specifically it's Jay leading the charge, which is interesting. Legado are backstage. Santos Escobar and all of his backups, Zelina Vega, Cruz del Toro, and Joaquin Wilde, are talking about the World Cup final, which is the main event tonight. The World Cup final is him versus Ricochet, and you just see that on a marquee, and you're like, yep, that's going to be a good match. Kofi Kingston. Oh, we're doing this. All right. Okay. Kofi Kingston is the first one to declare for the Royal Rumble. First of all, you just declare for the Royal Rumble. We don't have to qualify. This is the year. I'm sorry, this is where I kind of agree with the nitpickers. When there's only a month to build the Royal Rumble, or sometimes less. We had day one and then we had the Royal Rumble. That's 25 days apart, whatever. So there's only 3-4 weeks of show. Yeah, you're not going to have 3-4 weeks of solid qualifying matches. But we've got, from now until the end of January, you could do qualifying matches. You don't need goofballs like Kofi Kingston just saying, I declare for the Royal Rumble. And obviously, in the background of all this, commentators are going to bring up the 1,000,001 ways that he's escaped being eliminated, which sounds great. You know, it's like when somebody says, oh, they're the 15-time champion. Okay, cool. That just means they lost the title 14 times. If Kofi Kingston has become an expert at avoiding elimination, he must be pretty easy to eliminate then. If he's had to hop on pancakes and chairs and walk on rails and all that sort of thing, he must, in the first place, be really easy to chuck out of the ring. That's not as much of a selling point as they think it is. He's obviously accosted in the back because he can't. Nobody cares. Like, I don't care. I don't care about Kofi Kingston being in the Rumble. He's going to do a weird flippy thing and everybody's going to suck his dick for 5 minutes and then we're going to get on with the Rumble and it's going to be fine. He thinks he's John Morrison and he's not. Moving swiftly on. He's interrupted by Ludwig Kaiser and Giovanni Vici, and he says, I'd love to fight you guys tonight, but my partner's not here. Xavier Woods ain't here. I think he said he was doing some kind of gaming related thing, but I really wasn't paying attention. He said, so why don't one of you come and meet me in the ring later tonight? And then Walter steps into frame and says, okay, cool, I'm gonna fight you tonight. And Kofi Kingston, I do like the fact that he called out the whole, like, everybody in the backstage area is, like, 5 feet apart. He's like, were you just, like, standing, like, just out of frame? That's weird, man. But, like, they still do it, so it is what it is. Bray Wyatt's cutting a promo in the back. Basically, the theme of the promo is how, you know, human beings call each other violent when they lash out at each other, but nobody says anything when the frog eats the fly and when the fish eats a smaller fish and all that kind of, saying it much better than I'm saying it right now, obviously, but it's a pretty good thing. He says, but I didn't hurt LA Knight. I didn't hurt LA Knight, but when you all thought I did, you all liked it. How primal of you. And by the way, if it was me, you'd all know, because I would have finished the job, pretty much. Which is fine, and that's all we saw of Bray Wyatt tonight. So the people are like, oh my god, they're doing way too much Bray Wyatt. Well, yeah, the White Rabbit viral campaign was probably one of the most successful things Triple H has done since turning over the company, and that's a big-ass long list for the people out there that don't want to admit it. But yeah, that's all we got from Bray Wyatt. If this is building slow, like the White Rabbit campaign did, then yeah, either they're going to eliminate each other from the Rumble and fight at Mania, or they're going to fight at the Rumble, and either one of those is okay with me. Supposedly there's been a pitch made for them to do a pitch black match. I don't know what that's going to be. I don't know whether that's going to be their take on a lights out match. Some people have suggested that it's going to be a new version of a blindfold match. I'm sorry, this is a character that has waited this long to come back. Don't put him in a blindfold match, because everybody looks silly in a blindfold match. Shayna Baszler, with Ronda Rousey absent tonight, she's doing promotional stuff, we're told on commentary, as the SmackDown Women's Champion, which is absolutely fine and completely valid, and was an explanation we really didn't need, because Shayna Baszler doesn't really need backup. That's why them as a pair is hilarious. Taking on Emma. Emma, before she goes out to the ring, gets a pep talk from Madcap Moss and a kiss on the cheek, and she says thank you and calls him Riddick instead of Madcap, so he's getting his name back. I guess that's fine, I suppose. Baszler quickly makes Emma's arm the story of the match, being the submission magician. I guess I should use the proper nicknames and all that. A few lucky shots and a few roll-up attempts by Emma. She actually does put on a good... She does the best she's gonna lose, but she still looks good in the match thing. Like, the amount of... I don't want to say lucky shots, but the amount of combinations of offense that end up in quick roll-up attempts by Emma is more than you would expect. Because Emma, although she's a returning star, there are people who might have just started watching wrestling. You always have to consider that one fan, right? And she's, for all intents and purposes, new to the brand, so to speak. So a new person going up against Shayna Baszler, this new reinvigorated Shayna Baszler, getting any offense is already kind of a win. Lost my place. Suspension neckbreaker off the second rope by Emma, followed by the tarantula. Arm drag off the top into a Karafuda clutch, and Shayna Baszler gets the win because, of course, she was going to get the win. The arm drag off the top looked like it flailed, and that made it look a lot better than it would initially, or than it has. It looked a lot better than it has in previous times that Shayna Baszler has done it. There we go. Put a whole sentence together. Words. Let's go. She's going to do the post-match assault. She's going to do the Baszler stomp on the arm. The post-match assault is stopped by Shotzi, who then gets the shit kicked out of her, and that attack is broken up by Raquel Rodriguez, who finally makes Shayna Baszler leave the ring. So two more or less healthy people were no challenge for Shayna Baszler, but one person coming down with one arm, I don't know. The odds are 2.5 on 1. So I guess her leaving is alright, and she's a heel, so whatever. But she hangs around commentary, and she's basically like, tell them, make sure you tell them, I left when there was 3 of them. 3 on 1, which is fine. And Michael Cole goes on to put over the women's division and how it's been growing, and how it's going to grow by 1 more person, because Lacey Evans is coming back, and they go... And this is what I don't get. I'm not American. I don't have a dog in the fight as to how people see or don't see America, right? But I don't see how somebody who's legitimately gone into the services to serve their country and wants to bring a little bit of that into their character on screen because it's important to them is a bad thing. We've given Lacey Evans a lot of shitty gimmicks. We really have. We've rebooted her a lot. WWE has rebooted her a lot, which makes her sort of non-consistent as a character, but does it not also reflect the idea that she's come out with a particular role or a particular tweak or a particular reboot, it's been shat on, so they say, okay, let's try something else. For the company that apparently never listens to the people, that sounds like listening to the people, to me. But people went crazy, people went wild, people went nuts. She's gone back to, I guess, where she used to train when she was in the army, and it's just basically an army workout video, and she even says like a boxer goes back to training camp, or a car needs to go in for a tune-up, and that's what I have to do too. And she basically, you know, Lacey Evans, you know, journey to a comeback returns, or whatever the case may be. Not offensive in the slightest. It was like a minute long. You're gonna like her or you're gonna not. You're gonna hate her for the same reasons you hate Charlotte and Dana Brooke and Alexa Bliss, and all those people that fall into that particular demographic aren't allowed to be successful. I get it. But some of them are going to be, and you're going to have to get over that. Oh, yes. Video package from Ricochet to counteract the video package from Legado earlier, talking about the main event against Santos Escobar tonight, and it's going to be good. Gunther versus Kofi Kingston, and Kofi Kingston gets Brock Lesnar. Oh, yes. Gunther kills him a lot, and it makes me laugh. It's funny because Gunther is a lot like the Baszler Ronda Rousey situation. Gunther is out there with backup and should be always presented as the last person that would ever need backup. Braun comes down, causes a distraction, beats up Vinci and Kaiser. Meanwhile, in the ring, the match continues. Kofi tries to go for a top rope something, and Gunther slaps his soul out of his chest, and he hits him with this new move that's called the Final Symphony, which sounds a lot better than Powerbomb Sympathy, if you're asking me. But holy crap, in this entire thing, the amount of offense that Kofi Kingston got on him, the fact that he was so distracted immediately by Braun Strowman, the fact that they're trying to build up a battle of the monsters between Braun Strowman and Gunther should work. But the way that they're booking him right now, they booked him to run away from Strowman a couple weeks ago, and now they're booking him to take offense from Kofi Kingston. And I'm sorry, that's not even a dig at Kofi Kingston in this particular case. I mean, he is a goofball, but that's besides the point. The amount of offense that he took from Kofi Kingston, combined with how he's basically run from Braun Strowman, man, Gunther looks small. Now, Walter, the way he was presented in NXT UK, the way he was presented a little bit in NXT proper, was a monster. Now, he was huge, he was thick, and you couldn't touch him. He was a walking wall, pretty much. Now, in the interim, before he came to the main roster, he went out, he worked out differently, he did a bunch of different things, he changed his entire fucking body type. He went through a transformation that is absolutely applaudable, don't get me wrong. But that, combined with running from Braun Strowman, combined with taking this much offense from Kofi Kingston, I just walked away from this thinking, man, Gunther looks small. Man, he looks small. And he's the Intercontinental Champion on top of that, which doesn't help matters either. In the back, we got the Usos and Solo Sikoa and Sami Zayn, and Solo Sikoa and Sami Zayn go to grab the car because they're all going to go get a bite to eat, and Jimmy asks Jay, like, how are you this okay with him? Did you tell him that you know he lied on Friday and at the pay-per-view and whatever? And he's like, basically, yeah, he says, you know, Roman's the tribal chief, I gotta do what he said. You know, he saw whatever he needed to see when they talked on the pay-per-view, which was a pretty cool segment, by the way, I should say. But they both get interrupted by Sheamus, who beats the fuck out of both of them with shillelaghs and says that he and Drew want a title shot next week. Now, problem with this is twofold. Is A, I just said in my Raw review, yeah, Elias and Riddle aren't going to win the tag team titles on Monday. But you don't need other characters from the other show underlining the fact that, yeah, there's no point in watching that tag match on Raw. And also, the other part of this that sort of blows my mind a little bit is Sheamus is in a faction with Butch and Ridge. And they're a tag team, or they've at least wrestled as a tag team, but he wants to go for the tag team titles with a guy that's not in his faction, and that's not gonna cause eruption within his faction, unless that's the goal. Like, and that's another story altogether. But it's just a bit off, and between that and the Gunther stuff, and them absolutely minimizing Gunther, this was a little bit of a slog in the show. But don't you worry, but don't you fret. I did talk about, during the Raw review, about how the Bloodline as a whole coming to Raw feels like a big deal. It feels like you've added something a little bit extra to the show. Not nearly to the same level, but because they hold the tag team titles, Damage Control coming to SmackDown kind of has the same thing. Also means that they get twice as much exposure, etc., etc., etc. It's all good. Damage Control come out bragging about the time they spent in War Games, bragging about the fact that they had to wait until the last minute to find out who their last opponent was, and guess what? It was nobody here on the SmackDown roster, and they just start taking shots at the SmackDown roster for reasons, and they're cut off by Liv Morgan with the new crazy, I don't give a shit about anything, hardcore version of Liv Morgan, and basically she just says, alright, 1, 2, 3 versus 1, seems fair to me, jumps the ring. Jumps the ring 1-on-3, which is absolutely fine. She loses the 1-on-3 advantage, obviously, but she gets saved by the returning Tegan fucking Nox. Oh yes, she comes down. She's got a bit of a different look. I thought she was going to trip on her pants because she had really baggy pants on. I'm not going to lie. But Tegan Nox, you guys know I've been saying it for a long ass time. We've been saying it since Clash at the Castle was in Wales, and I thought that would have been a perfect thing, but apparently she was dealing with a fuck ton of, like, visa issues and shit. Now, I'm not familiar with those types of legal issues, so I'm not even going to try and talk about that, but I will say Tegan Nox was a loss when they lost her, so to have her back is a win. I would say, if you're going to have a ragtag team take on Damage Control at this point, make it Liv Morgan, Tegan Nox, and Shotzi Blackheart. Now, you could play that up, because right before she got let go, her and Shotzi were formed into sort of a makeshift tag team, and Liv Morgan being crazy now just sort of fits. But yeah, saves Liv Morgan from the 3-on-1 advantage. She falls victim to the 3-on-1 advantage herself. Liv comes back in with a kendo stick to even the odds, and they stand tall, even though it's 2 and a kendo stick on 3. But Tegan Nox is back, that's the main thing. I will say this. Nobody's going to care that I have to say this, because NXT is not what it used to be. Before COVID hit, before the lockdown happened, before the world shut down for a little bit, worried about a cold, there was one last proper takeover, and I'm going to review this takeover in a while as well. You guys know I did the NXT Rewind series where I was going through all the old takeovers, and I stopped at about 5 or 6, because then the world opened up again and I had less time and whatever. I do, at some point, I'm going to do a flashback review of NXT TakeOver Portland, because NXT TakeOver Portland was the last real takeover. And I say that with all respect to everybody involved, with all respect to everybody that tried to perform for us during COVID, with all respect to the people that have now had to endure this transition to NXT 2.0 to NXT, whatever we want to call this now, 3 Gold. With all respect to any of those, the last show that WWE gave us that was worthy of the name TakeOver was NXT TakeOver Portland. And, I'll take the hot take a bit farther, the best match on that card was the street fight between Dakota Kai and Tegan Nox, following on from Dakota Kai turning on Tegan Nox at War Games. So run that shit back. I said it during the Raw review. Separate it, like, Dakota Kai is still going to be part of Damage Control, that's fine, but separate her out and let her have her own feud. Let them drop the tag titles. Apparently the Iconics are coming back, so that's a thing that might happen. but let them like drop the tag titles. Io Sky can go feud with Asuka one-on-one because we all want to see that. Bayley can feud with Becky because we all want to see that. Let Dakota Kai pick up her rivalry with Tegan Nox. Run that shit back. Run that street fight back, because that street fight was where we were introduced to Raquel Gonzalez, who went on to become Raquel Rodriguez. This is all very, very good. So what have we had this week? We're going to talk about it again at the end, but last Friday we had the return of Becky Lynch just before War Games. On Monday we had the return to action of Candice LeRae, and this week's SmackDown we got the return of Tegan Nox. You can't complain. And to the people that are like, oh, they're just building up the roster so that they can do the Royal Rumble, yeah. That's kind of the point. And there are a couple really kick-ass chicks in NXT that could get into the Royal Rumble as well. What's her name? Zoe Stark had a match on Main Event. I don't ever watch Main Event. If you're wondering, Sportsnet 360, which shows us Raw and SmackDown here in Canada, they play Main Event after SmackDown, and I just happened to leave it on while I was putting some notes together and whatever, and it was Zoe Stark versus Dana Brooke, and she had a really good match. Dana Brooke looked like she was going a bit insane, which is fine. She used to be the 24/7 championship holder, and then Nikki Cross put it in the bin, except it didn't go in the bin. We go to the back, and Karrion Kross and Scarlett are doing spooky stuff. So, yet again, another hot, white blonde chick is doing spooky stuff. So both of those groups are going to come together and bitch again, and it'll be fantastic, and Twitter will be a bonfire. But those people setting the bonfire on Twitter are the same people pretending that they're leaving Twitter because of Elon Musk. So talk in your own circles. I'm going to enjoy wrestling. Karrion Kross and Scarlett have now set their eyes on Rey Mysterio for reasons. And the main event is fucking fantastic. I think it went almost a half hour. It's the finals of the World Cup on Fox, the SmackDown World Cup on Fox. Ricochet representing the USA, Santos Escobar representing Mexico, coming down with Legado at ringside and Vega on commentary. They get ejected very quickly, and mad about their ejection, Vega comes to ringside and gets herself ejected as well. Fantastic fucking... I couldn't do this match justice if I tried. I really couldn't. But I will say, fantastic match between both of them. I do think ejecting all the backup early let Santos Escobar just go out there and show what he could do. And with heels that have backup, you need to do that every now and then. Because if every match is because of the backup, because of the extra stories happening on the outside, because of the helping, the cheating, etc., it is possible to look at a wrestler and be like, are you actually good? Can you actually carry a match? Now, that's going to bear heavily on like just who you like and who you don't like, which is a separate conversation altogether. But ejecting Cruz del Toro and Joaquin Wilde and Zelina Vega early, after letting Zelina Vega be out there and be hot as fuck, is not a bad thing. I mean, Malachi Black should really come back to WWE, but that's another story for another day. I will say the running star press off the apron by Ricochet onto Santos was really good. Knee strike, double suplex, lion salt combination. Second rope poison Rana. Okay, sorry, I should say first, when Santos Escobar goes for the top rope poison Rana and Ricochet landed on his feet, that was fucking sick. But then we get a second rope poison Rana, a couple of knee shots, and a 630 splash by Ricochet for the win. Ricochet up on the rampway, okay, admittedly the trophy looks chintzy as hell. They've used it for like 3 different World Cup type things now. But Ricochet on the top of the rampway, I was about to say on the top rope, at the top of the rampway with all the pyro going off around him to end the show, made him look like a fucking star. And the fact that is then cut off by Gunther coming down, staring him down, who doesn't look 10 feet tall anymore because he just had to sell offense to Kofi Kingston earlier on in the night and ran away from Braun Strowman. I think Ricochet is getting his title back in 2 weeks, so that's a thing that's definitely happening. So now, what do we have? Next week we have the Usos beating the shit out of Riddle and Elias on Raw, and then having probably a pretty damn good match against Sheamus and Drew McIntyre on SmackDown. Apropos of nothing, JBL is having an invitational poker tournament on Raw, which is just going to be him making fun of people with Baron Corbin, which will piss off all the right people. In 2 weeks, we are in fact getting Ricochet versus Gunther in a rematch for the Intercontinental Championship, which will be fantastic, and I'm sure more people will declare for the Royal Rumble. Now, a couple of things to take away from this week, because I actually did notes this week. Damage control is kind of going wildly off in all directions. I like that they're sort of pulling away from the other ragtag group of 3 that had been assembled to fight them. It seems like Becky Lynch is going to take up problems with Bayley where Bianca Belair left off, leaving Bianca Belair to go off and actually feud with other people and maybe actually make it look like that belt is in a bit of peril. I really do hope we get more singles Asuka Io Shirai stuff, and it looks like Dakota Kai could have a rivalry with Candice LeRAE on Raw, or as I mentioned earlier, could revisit a very popular rivalry in Tegan Nox on SmackDown, depending on how we go. Speaking of which, the return of Tegan Nox, as I said, is fucking awesome. Theory and Seth Rollins are absolutely making the US title look like a main event concern on Raw, considering the actual champion spends most of his time on SmackDown. Candice LeRae returning to action was also really cool, and Nikki Cross lurking in the background while she was making her comeback promo makes me think that that could be a thing. As I said, Becky taking over on a feud with Bayley is something that could exist in the women's division at a high profile level without involving the title, which will, like I say, will probably carry a main event of Raw leading into the new year. And Rhea Ripley is just existing in her own, on her own level within the women's division. The stuff that she did with Mia Yim, both in the cage match and on Raw, was great. They keep inching and teasing towards like intergender wrestling in WWE, which I know they're never going to do, but when they tease it with somebody like Rhea Ripley who actually could do it, that is kind of a bummer. When she does get herself into the title picture, when she does, she has to win. When she does, she has to win, because the way she's presented and the way she carries herself right now is better than anybody. And I don't care whether it's people I like, I don't care whether it's people that I don't like, I don't care whether it's Bianca Belair or whether it's Shotzi Blackheart, I don't care whether, like, I'm sorry, Becky Lynch just came back, but I would not book Becky Lynch to beat Rhea Ripley at this point in her career. Let her finally, and yes, people are upset about a certain other person that might come back soon who beat Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania. I would say give Rhea Ripley that rematch and let her win. Rhea Ripley has to either pick up a title at WrestleMania, or when the time comes to unify those titles, like they did with the men's title, like they did with the tag titles, she needs to be the one to unify the titles. One of those two things needs to happen. Now, there's a shitty take out there, considering the women's division right now. Now, there's two segments, two statements out there, and they're usually being said by the same person. They're usually being said by the same person on Twitter, and you all know who those people are. They all have, like, Sasha Banks or Naomi pictures in their display picture. It's never actually them, because shitty takes don't lead to honesty. But those two shitty takes are WWE doesn't have a women's division until Sasha Banks comes back. The same people will tell you WWE's women's division is doomed when Charlotte Flair comes back. Now, it's funny on a lot of levels, because everybody out there says that, like, everybody has their best match with Sasha, when it's actually the fact that everybody has their best match with Charlotte Flair, including Sasha Banks. I don't think Charlotte Flair has ever ended anybody's career. I think Charlotte Flair manages to maintain an actual human hairline, whereas Sasha Banks has more forehead than me. Not that that matters, but it's just funny. Sasha Banks is an entitled cunt. Moving on. But the whole, if you're out there saying that the division only exists if Sasha Banks comes back and it's doomed, like, just admit you're racist at this point. Like, just goddamn admit you're racist. Like, it's laughable at this point. It's laughable at this point if you're trying to hold that up, that Charlotte Flair coming back to this division will be a bad thing. It's laughable. Now, on a more positive note, Deonna Purrazzo and Chelsea Green might be coming back to the WWE. Chelsea Green has been rumored for a while, along with Zack Ryder rumors. She left Impact. Now, I haven't totally kept up on my Impact stuff recently, but I know she was written out of their show, and basically when somebody asked her what, where she was going, what she was going to do next, she just said she was going home. And then over the weekend, Virtuosa Deonna Purrazzo put out on social media, "Hey, I'm Chelsea Green, you got room at home for me." Deonna Purrazzo's fucking wonderful. I was so gutted. Now, this is going to come off as so shit, right? I was so gutted when she had to drop the title that she had to Mercedes Martinez. Now, she didn't sign to AEW, so obviously they were going to bring her on to AEW, have her beat an AEW person for that belt. I understand that. It was fucking amazing. Even though it was AEW, it was fucking amazing to see Deonna Purrazzo in front of a much larger crowd that she deserves to be in front of. But Deonna Purrazzo and Chelsea Green, along with some of the other people, like I said, in the past week alone, we've gotten Becky Lynch back, we've gotten CANDICE LeRAE back, and we've got TEGAN NOX back. Look at this fucking roster right now. It'd be great. The other minor thing to talk about is apparently there's a rumor going around, or a rumored picture going around, that is a new mock-up of the WWE Tag Team Championships. It's the same exact design, it's just on a black strap. And the rumor is that that's going to be presented to the Usos in the next couple of weeks. If they do it, it's fine. They need to do it for Roman as well, though. Like, to have Roman hand them single belts to signify their unified titles and have him still walk around with two is going to be a bit weird. I like it because the blue and the red really do look bad. They really do. The Universal Championship, when they took it off the red strap and put it on the blue strap for SmackDown, because it's like navy blue, it doesn't really bug me that much. But you got bright blue and you got bright red on those two belts, and put it on a black strap. And I've been the one to say it. I've taken my beatings on social media for it. You might not like the design of the tag team championship belts that they have right now, but they do make sense. What is on the front of those titles, and their gladiator helmets instead of like wrestlers, right? But what's on those belts is two fighters, the faces of two fighters. And what are tag team championships? A team of two fighters that have won championships. So those belts make more sense than most of the other belts that just look like WWE brand hood ornaments. So hopefully they're going to get belts soon, because those things, although it does look cool for them to all go out there and hold up like 6 belts, 7 when Solo Sikoa had the North American Championship, but don't worry about it. For them to have one title because there's one champion, and one set of titles because there's one set of champions, somewhere along the way will be like aesthetically good. I hope they put a bit of pomp and circumstance into it. I mean, they could do the really cool thing and just put it on a plaid belt, but no, that would be dumb. Who would do that? Not a brand that I'm going to be talking about here. I'll tell you that one for free. Anyways, I've been Spaz, your YWC Reality Check. Subscribe up there, talking on there, start a conversation. Keep all these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I'll talk to each and every last one of you later, but for right now, tag it out. Bye, guys.